Welcome to our very first FSACCI Coffee Table of the year. It's great to have some people in our brand new office as well, but more importantly, for participating in our first experiment of the digital. So thank you very much, Bureau Veritas, for being our guinea pigs today. But besides that, thank you very much, everyone, for joining as well. Today, we're going to be chatting, of course, with Bureau Veritas on fostering a sustainable world. Doing that today, we have Sal. Thank you very much, Sal, for coming. So Sal Govender is the Vice President for Southern Africa at Bureau Veritas, and she's going to be guiding us through or helping us navigate this new world or this new thing of sustainability, which I think we've all heard a lot about, but hopefully we can unpack what that means specifically in our business environment, and maybe a little bit about what we can do as businesses if we're starting to think and starting to transition into this new world. So Sal's going to be joining us. She's going to give us a brief introduction. We'd like to keep it, of course, as conversational and informal as possible. I know it's a bit tricky. We've got some people online and some with us today. So what we'll be doing is, for those online, please feel free to engage with us via the chat. You can see there's a Q&A box located at the bottom, as well as the chat group. So please, throughout it, jot down your notes and we will deal with your questions or any comments during the Q&A. And of course, to the audience today, you're front and center, so please, we welcome all questions and also an opportunity to engage with us one-on-one. I think that's the idea, is to engage and to collaborate and start brainstorming some of these ideas. So on that note, I'm going to hand over to you, Sal, to give the presentation, and then we'll get started on the Q&A.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Okay, I'm told I'm supposed to stand in a certain angle. Okay, so if you can't see all of me,
just there.
There we go. Okay, good morning, everybody, and thank you so much for joining us today to look at a very important topic about sustainability. So I'm no subject matter expert, so I'm not going to dig into the fundamentals of sustainability or pure hardcore sustainable initiatives. But what I am going to do, I'm going to look at it from a business perspective. And the business perspective very much is, why is there a need for integrated strategies when you are looking at sustainable strategies, sustainability plans, or sustainability initiatives? And that is the key, because that seems to be the fundamental gap that we are facing today as corporations, as nations, as governments, as individuals. We cannot see the intertwining or that happy equilibrium between traditional business, okay, which looks at you making a profit, and ensuring sustainability. So you always find with the sustainable departments or the head of sustainability, there's very often a clash between the executives or not so much the board, because a lot of the boards have now come into play to want to have a very integrated strategy. So today, as I said, I'm not talking about degradation of resources, depletion of resources, and how we can make a comeback. But what I will be looking at is, as organizations, how do we ensure we have an integrated strategy between business strategy, between sustainable strategies, between your comms, between your marketing, and all of that? And how does it all meld to actually have positive outcomes at the end? Because I think that is the fundamental thing, is as organizations, as corporates, we're in here to, I mean, if we're not an NGO, we need to make a profit, right? So how does that traditional way of making profit then fit in with sustainable objectives? So please feel free to pipe in, to answer, to make a big rah-rah, to comments. I'm quite okay with that, okay? So the doorstep of blame. The doorstep. Now, I'm not talking about marriages here, okay? Okay, I'm talking about the doorstep of blame when it comes to corporations. Most businesses are deemed the culprits. And, you know, in all fairness, very often we are, right? So when we look at where that blame stops, it stops very much at multinationals and corporates' doorstep, because businesses look, what is the fundamental reason we're in business? And all at once now, come on. Yeah, we're in here to make a profit, right? But when you look at traditional business profitability or making a profit, it's equal to that organization being a going concern or being sustainable, okay? And the word sustainable is used there, right? So take that word in terms of being sustainable, making a profit. But if I had to look at corporate social responsibility, if I had to look at climate change, my CO2 reduction, all of this, okay, what kind of investment goes into it? So does that then impact my bottom line? And so the doorstep of blame very much is with organizations because we haven't found that happy equilibrium. So how then, as organizations, all of us as business leaders sitting in this room, you guys are online, I have not forgotten about you. Can you see me?
Yes.
Nod. Okay. Okay. So how do we bridge that role? How do we bridge that gap? Okay. So we're here to make a profit. Everybody's screaming and shouting, the millennials, the generation Y, X, whatever's out there, baby boomers too, okay, all shouting out there. We need to ensure that there's a proper sustainable objectives, proper sustainable initiatives. How do we bridge that gap? Now, if you know in the environment we're operating, as you all do, because we're operating in organizations that look to make profits and look to be going concerns and to be sustainable in terms of going concern, not sustainable in terms of the climate, etc. You will find today we are dealing with the kind of target audience or the kind of market out there that wants ethical behavior. So I'm sure all of you in your organization, suddenly in the last 7-8 years, ethics has become a big thing. Okay? We even get reported, for like, look at somebody funny and, that might be bad ethical behavior, right? But it's because the market's demanding it. It's because the people, the consumers, the end consumer, right? They're demanding ethical behavior from organizations. They want to know, what is your organization? What is your purpose? And if you cannot articulate that, either through your communications, your marketing, or even in your elevator speech, they're going to question you. So tell me, what is your purpose? And you go, my mission is this. My vision is this for our organization. And that's beautiful because we have lots of lovely adjectives and lots of nice words in there, right? That describes our mission and our vision. How does it articulate to the end user in terms of ethical behavior, your purpose? Because customers today, they're in touch and they want to be in touch, right? This big furor at the moment about responsible sourcing, about where the cotton is coming from, about H&M, Burberry, all taking 2 steps back and saying, okay, we'll not associate with this. And then, you get involved in spin and all of that stuff because you want to backtrack maybe what you didn't investigate or audit in the first place. So customers want to be in touch with that particular product or service. They want to know, if you're offering me this product or service, there's traceability. Where does it come from? How did it get there? And what is that value chain or supply chain therein? So you're dealing with a very educated, very discerning customer. And that's what we need to be cognizant of. The days of all that lovely, fluffy marketing and you putting out your press releases and you saying, this is us, we're organization A, and this is what we're achieving. People read between the lines now. They go, fluff, scruff, pop that. This is not quantitative. This is not making sense to me. So let's be very, very cognizant of that. So those 3 are the mega trends. They are the mega trends that are leading the way why organizations now want to bridge that gap. So I'm sure all of you, so I'm not going to give you the 101 on the 2030 agenda and sustainable development goals, but I am going to speak about it briefly, right? So as organizations, we then look and say, yes, you want sustainable efforts. What do we look like? And let's face it, up until say 10, even 5 years ago, a lot of the corporate social investments that we were doing were piecemeal, right? Let's be honest about that. They were piecemeal. We were cherry picking. So we go, okay, we'll sponsor the school here. We'll do a bit of painting there. Get the road done there. We'll look okay, right? And then we do a bit of press releases because social recognition, of course, takes care of social responsibility. Not, biggest no-no, social recognition does not take care of social responsibility. It actually just gives you not such a good image. I won't use the word bad, okay? So then we have the 2030 agenda, and the 2030 agenda was adopted in 2015 by the United Nations. And what the bottom line there is, from 2015, the next 15 years, we will use those 17 SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals, to look to address poverty alleviation, gender equality, access to clean water and sanitation. So those were put into place, right? So whether you are a fan of the United Nations or not, collectively, if we all want to make a difference, this is what we have at the moment. Okay, this is the framework we can work from. This is what governments all around the world are using. And so then, when I was going to the doorstep of blame, very often the doorstep of blame also outside of corporate sits at government's door, right? Because you go, useless government, cannot put this together, cannot do this. Why is this entire line not fluid? Why am I not seeing integrated? Hello, okay? We're no different, okay? We are also, sorry, I'm supposed to look at you. Jean-Michel's pointing at me. I'm not making eye contact, okay, virtually. So yeah, he came here to like monitor me, okay? So we ask these questions, okay? So why are we not having a government that has an integrated, fluid strategy? And as I say, we as corporates are no different. We're just as culprits. We do the piecemeal. We'll do a corporate social responsibility program. We'll have HR doing people development. We'll have the business strategy, the marketing strategy. Oh, what's our DNA for our brand? Everything is everywhere, and never shall the twain meet. Okay. So when you look at these SDGs, as I said, it's the blueprint we have going currently, right? So rather than reinventing the wheel, let's look at collectively, governments, corporates, individuals. How can we get together to ensure collectively we fundamentally change the world and we create a sustainable landscape for everyone? So the good thing about the SDGs, it's indivisible. If you look at it, if you look at each one, it's literally indivisible, okay? It tries and involves and engages all stakeholders. But more importantly, it is universally applicable. Even first world countries have poverty, am I right? Right, so if you look at it, universally acceptable. So taking there from your 2030 agenda, your 17 SDGs, so where are you going, Sal? What's next? The question then begs, why is it important to integrate sustainability, your sustainability programs, into your corporate strategy? Why is it important? Without looking at the slides, somebody tell me. Okay, so let's go through that, right? It's important because, as I'm saying, when you cherry pick, when you do piecemeal, when you say, that component is okay for thee, you are taking a fragmented approach. And the biggest catastrophe you could ever ask for yourself as an organization is using a fragmented approach, right? Because there's guys that are HR, that are sustainability managers, MD, CEOs, a whole host of marketing guys, all of you on this call today and in person, right? When you put your silo strategy together with your marketing, so let's use marketing, okay? You put in your marketing and your comm strategy together. You make sure everything's fluid, right? That's why we call it integrated marketing and communications plan. It's beautiful, it's integrated. Has it been integrated into your brand strategy? Has it been integrated into your corporate strategy? Has it been integrated into your HR? You go, no, how's HR and marketing finding a happy medium here? And that's where that gap we need to be, I think, ever so cognizant about. Okay, guys? Yeah, I can see you haven't forgotten, right? So the first thing is social responsibility improves a company's public image. So what did I say before? I said you're dealing with very discerning customers. You're dealing with customers who want to be in touch with your product, who want to know, where did that cotton come from? Where did this product come from? What is the traceability of it? So they're very discerning, right? So they want to know where it's come from. So if you have a very integrated, sustainable program that talks back into your corporate strategy, it fundamentally, as I said, has a fluid message that goes throughout. It doesn't matter whether the call center coordinator or the chief executive is caught in an elevator. They all speak the same language, right? The coordinator doesn't, I don't know what the big guy up there is thinking about. I don't know, that is an executive decision, right? Because when you talk sustainability, it's not an executive decision. It is something we all have to immerse ourselves in, and we all have to own. So the public image automatically, right? If a customer is buying from you, what's coming in? What's coming in? Your money, right? You are getting paid for your products and your services. So the traditional way of ensuring that your company is sustainable is to be financially sound, to be a going concern, to make profit. There, it's tantamount. It's almost a natural progression that you are going to be economically advantaged, right? Because that customer is touching, it's feeling this product, feeling this service, and is purchasing it from you. Social responsibility improves a company's profits. That is, self-explanatory, okay? Because there we go. I'm buying your stuff, ching, ching, ching. You have good sustainable programs. You have good cost savings, all of that stuff. It leads to you increasing your profit margins. Social responsibility allows an organization to nurture its assets, which is goodwill. Goodwill is intangible yet tangible because we put a price tag on it if you're selling your organization or your entity, right? Trust and a good reputation. Once again, like with the public image, that then becomes tantamount to being economically advantaged. Social responsibility improves an organization's dynamics. What does that mean? It means that the people in your organization, you and I, the employees of that organization, we have a sense of belonging. We have a sense of community. We look at these programs that are put in place and we go, wow, I'm really happy to be working for a company like this. And when that becomes that first line you use, as opposed to I'm happy because the sun is out this morning, you then know as an organization, you are doing something that is impactful and that is sustainable because you have employees that want to be part of this organization. And social responsibility increases the company's attractiveness to investors. I don't need to tell everybody. Sustainability index, the sustainability report, every annual report now needs to have that. It's no longer an appendix. It's no longer as other, right? It's now sitting as part of those reports. Because even as an investor, you want to know, what is this company doing? What initiatives do they have in place? But more importantly, guys, is it fragmented or is it integrated? Okay, so what I want all of you to do today, when you go back after this conversation, that is what you need to look at. Is my organization's sustainability program fragmented, piecemeal, cherry-picked, or do I have an integrated strategy? And feel free to pipe up and ask me anything at any point in time, okay? So then, if we look at traditional, traditional corporate strategy is to make a profit, right? To be really profitable, and your bottom line is looking fly, and your turnover is good, so everything's dandy. Okay, so what then ensures the board, the executives, the chief executive to even say, I want to go down this aisle of ensuring an integrated strategy? What prompts them? Okay, so if you look, and I'm not going to go through too much, and you can ask me questions if you like. We will share this presentation with everybody, right? I'm happy to do that. So the external drivers are, it's a no-brainer. It's legislation. Okay, so legally, what do I need to comply with? I can't have this mass pollution coming out my chimney from my manufacturing plant and nobody saying anything about it. Okay, because I'm going to be looked for air quality and all of those things. Okay, so you have your external drivers. You have the connecting drivers to your legal compliance or to your external driver. And the connecting drivers is, as an organization, what is our image? How do we want to be viewed? What's the biggest danger for companies when there's a crisis, right? What happens? Crisis comes, everybody's going, damage control. Let's see how we can do something. Let's do this, let's do that, all of those things. Because your reputation sometimes means you can actually lose share price, especially if you're a listed organization like many of you are, right? So you could lose share price, you could lose face, then you having, even the comms teams that time, let me tell you, I'm a comms person as well, but let me tell you, even that time, the comms guy, he doesn't know how to crisis manage. Because if you show me a perfect example of a crisis that has gone beautifully, then I'll cut my hair. Okay, because I have not seen a crisis that has gone beautifully in terms of spin, right? People are discerning. We are not dealing with unlearned. You're not dealing with uneducated. People are educated. And when I say educated, I don't mean your tertiary qualifications or your accolades. I'm talking about your savvy, your understanding, your being in touch with what the market is doing and what's happening in the world out there, right? So then you've got your reputation and your social and environmental responsibility. And this pretty much, this is my little red guy. Is it this guy? Oh, there we go. Never tell to lie. Okay, so you've got these connecting drivers. Then your internal drivers, which we all have. Everybody has a QHSE department. No doubt about that. That is mandatory in this day and age, right? You got cost reduction and economic performance. Now, during the pandemic, we all know this, okay? What happened? 26th of March, the country went, I'm talking South Africa here, guys outside South Africa tuned in, okay? What happened? We all went into wild panic, okay? Because what do we think? We thought, we don't know how businesses are gonna perform. We had a budget for 2020. Are we going to meet this budget? What is going to happen? So 26th of March, and I know I've got Jean-Michel, I've got Cesc sitting here, all part of the leadership team. We were in like, okay, we were like those crisis comms people who didn't know what to do, okay? Because we had it there, but we were not envisaging a pandemic, a total shutdown, right? Where essential services, are we deemed essential, are we not? And if you're not deemed essential, then you're gonna have to be closed down until that hard lockdown was over, right? So there you have it, you have your cost reduction and economic performance. So every organization uses that as their first port of call, especially, you know, when this whole crisis of COVID hits, that was the first thing we went to, right? They say, stop the advertising, stop this, stop that, because we need to see how we're going to, and it's been, I mean, that's fair because we didn't know how we were going to perform, okay? And then this, guys, your competitive advantage. Let that be when you're dealing with opportunity cost and why should my sustainability programs integrate with my corporate strategy? That competitive advantage should be your number one key driver, right? Because you all know back in the day, whether you did a commercial degree, an MBA, or whatever down the line, we're all in business. At some point, we know about competitive advantage, whether it's used loosely or used with substance, okay? But what you will find, the biggest motivational factor is competitive advantage of an integrated program. Ultimately and unequivocally will give you that sustainable competitive advantage. And you know, when they talk about sustainable competitive advantage back in the day, you know, when I did Porter from 19 FSACCI, gosh, I was at university in 1988. Okay, but when we did Porter's competitive advantage and all of that, okay, when they did sustainable competitive advantage, sorry, right? They weren't talking about climate change and COP26 and the SDGs. No, they were talking about your company being financially sound and secure, right? Okay, so that was that competitive advantage. But now when you use sustainable competitive advantage, let it tie in to say, sustainable competitive advantage for profit. It's sustainable competitive advantage in terms of my people, my planet, my processes, all of that, right? And then of course you have hindering, sometimes supporting, sometimes hindering factors, okay? Management, control, and endorsement. So maybe as a sustainability manager, you've had this whoop-de-woo, woo-ha kind of thing saying, I want an integrated strategy, right? And then you go up to the leadership team, okay? So say you don't sit on it, or if you do, and you say, okay, I want to drive the sustainability program, okay? And I want to look at fundamentally how we can integrate the corporate strategy into the sustainability program. And if you get a negative kind of thing there, what do? Some of us go back, right? You know, you try again, and then you give up, right? It's not like I'm going to keep going. So you try again, and then it's not working out, and then you lose it. But what that organization has lost is an opportunity to be fundamentally sound and sustainable, okay? Stakeholder engagement. More and more we're finding the stakeholder engagement is very much a supporting factor, okay? Because if you look around you, if you look at government, you look at what NGOs, you look at even just the guy in the street wants to do, right? You want more out of this world, you want more out of this climate, you want more out of your life, okay? And that renders itself to that stakeholder. Organizational learning and knowledge, that is a huge supporting factor if you ensure that the employees in the organization all buy into this. And it has to be a collective. like the SDGs with the United Nations, if we don't work as a collective, we're never ever going to achieve those desired outcomes, right? Transparency and transparency and communication can be a hindering factor if you don't do it right? If you're a spin doctor rather than a transparent comms and marketing person or a CEO, whatever the case might be. Management and attitude and behavior, once again, support or hindering, depending which way of the realm it goes. Organizational culture, that as well can be either or, depending on the culture of the organization. The complexity and investment, and that's where it can be a hindering factor. Because the guys go, but putting proper sustainable initiatives together is so complex. It's so convoluted. Okay. Now I'm going to look at this convoluted little, thing that I have in my hand, and I want to meld it with a corporate strategy that's all the board and the execs deal with. How's it going to work? And that sometimes is your biggest issue, as well as how much of money is it going to take. But in life, you initially put, like when you're building your house, right? You put in that capital outlay. So you want solar panels, you want to conform to XA, 10400, which is the energy efficiency. You want to make sure there's ventilation, blah, blah, blah in your building. And you go, wow, it's actually going to set me back 200K ZAR, right? But the 200K ZAR in your short term, you need to look at things long term when you're being sustainable. And you say, 10 years down the line, how much have I saved? So you look very much like Australia, UK, US. If you go off the grid, they give you rebates, right? But I know locally that we haven't gotten there yet. Okay, but if you go off the grid or you get rebates. Okay, so you get rebates because you are encouraged. You are encouraged to save the planet. You are encouraged to do better, isn't it? So what does integrating sustainability into business mean? What does it mean, right? And where you may have thought it's complex, guys, you are actually doing this. I can see Jean-Michel is like, yeah, we have an operational excellence guy as well, okay? So your operational excellence looks at your entire chain of how you do your processes or how your operations in your organization. And how then do you either re-engineer, reinvent, or you bring it to a point where it's really efficient, right? Integrated thought. Integrated thought is like taking your strategy and integrating. If you look at integrated thought looks like, I will take my HR, I will plug it behind my corporate, behind my sustainability, into my marketing and communications, into my QHSE. So everything is just, it's integrated, your thought process. It's like when you have a child, for those who have kids, when you have a child, the day the child is born, as a father or as the mother, when you are, carrying the kid around with your tummy, rattling around, whatever the case might be, you have integrated thoughts. Am I right? You're thinking, 20 years from now, this kid's gonna be second year med school or law school, and I'm gonna send this kid to this, and I'm gonna do that. Integrated thought. Use your innate first go-to skill sometimes as a parent. Okay, because that's what you do when you have a child. You plan that future. It's there in your head, right? You have that vision. Oh, this is how they're gonna look like. Wow, if I have them in their little Gucci's. Oh, this is how they're gonna be. This is the bursary they're gonna get. They're gonna be the first person in this family who's gonna have 3 degrees, a PhD, whatever the case might be. Okay, right? Okay, in my case, my son, I'm just happy he goes to school. Okay, but the whole idea there is you do have, and can you see, if you take the complexity out of it, how simple it is, right? It's the same with the budget at work. If I say to you, take your, like how you do budgeting at work and start replicating it for your home thing, you go, no, it's too difficult. There's so many things, yes, you've got your land and buildings, you've got your fixed assets. It's not so much different. So the same way you need to sometimes to remove the complexity or to remove the convolutedness of things. Just make it simple. Make it simple and it would make sense to you. It would make a business sense to you. Okay? Innovation at the center. So ultimately, when you put sustainable objectives together or a plan or programs together, you will result in innovation because you have to be innovative to be able to look at, okay, I'm going to have energy efficiency here. I'm going to make sure I drive an electric car. We're not talking South Africa yet, eh? Okay, guys, just bear with me. Okay, we're talking electric car for all the French guys in the room, okay, who can drive their electric car in Paris. So innovation sits at the center, and when it sits at the center, ultimately you are rendering to sustainable program, or you're ensuring that your sustainable programs will succeed. Okay, adapting to a changing world. So when you say adapting to a changing world, I don't mean increased pollution here. When I say adapting to a changing world here, saying why you should integrate sustainability into a business is because, as I said, what happened on the 26th of March? Our world went into chaos in South Africa, okay, before that for a couple of other countries and in China or whatever, much, much earlier. But we went into a state of chaos. You adapt or you become a dinosaur. You choose, right? So rather than looking or in retrospect saying, I should have, I could have, you need to be adaptive. So your strategies, your programs, they need to be preemptive. They need to be so quick that you, like when you're driving, you're so alert, right? You're looking there and, you know, if people had to watch other people drive, it's actually hilarious. We should actually record that because there you are. That must look so dumb if you had to, you know, just focus on that, right? But what are you doing? You are being alert. You're adapting. Okay, a guy's switching lane. He doesn't have his indicator on. I'm onto this. I'm sorting myself out. Okay. But the most important thing there, guys, you will look when you start integrating sustainability into your business. You will start looking at new social impact models. All of you know these ESG, right? Your environmental, your social, your governance. Everyone says, yes, we got to have this, we got to be, and we all have it. If you look at our corporate strategy, it's sitting there. We have sustainability reports, but you go back, and today you're going to be devil's advocate when you go back. You're going to ask that question, are we integrated? Okay, make it just like your buzzword. So your ESG, so a new social impact model actually looks at taking your ESG and your traditional financial performance. So no one, you know, the 2030 agenda, the ethos of the 2030 agenda sounds like Lilo and Stitch's Ohana. No one gets left behind. Okay, but it is the ethos of that 2030 agenda is no one is left behind. Okay, so be cognizant of if you put new social impact models into play, you will ensure your financial performance and your environmental, social, and governance is completely taken care of. So you think, wow, it's that easy. Yes, it takes work, so it's not that easy. It takes work, but there's a lot of templates and blueprints that are available to assist organizations, right? And that's what I'm going to come to next. So EY did a survey, I think about maybe 2018, and 80% they found of corporates to look at integrating sustainability into corporate strategy was everyone said yes. Not everyone has it, but everyone said yes to it, okay? So if you look at that, these are the different type integration models that are out there. Right. So if you want, you can go have the hourglass model. It looks at, so you could, you know, picture the what an hourglass looks like and where it starts and where it ends. So ultimately, if you look at these integration models, you've got the sustainability strategy roadmap, the business model thinking framework. The GON model looks at 8 levels of maturity and Lozano as well. So pretty much they look at models that would look at how mature am I in this particular? Am I average? Have I reached completion? Am I anywhere near where I should be? Okay, so we will share this. Things you can go have a look at, right? And the United Nations also has their one, it's called a roadmap for integrated sustainability. So these are integration models of how you can take sustainable programs and make sure your corporate strategy links with it. It's interlinked, interconnected, and indivisible. Okay, so a social impact model, and I'm going to give you an example of what we at BV do. So the best way of ensuring that you are an advocate for integrating sustainability into corporate strategy is to actually be the best student in it, or try to be a good student in it, or try to learn, right? And when you look at when I said a social impact model, we look at everything from your ESG all the way to ensuring financial performance. So you need to look at things like your suppliers, your internal sites, and your partners, because ultimately, and actually we look at an audit. So in BV we use a tool that is so we're quantitative and qualitative. So we use an internal tool that we feed all we do audits on various like biodiversity, climate change, social being more HR, whether we have fair labor practice, those type of things, business performance, we look at business. So you look at the whole, it's a proper social impact model, right? So you look at the whole realm, the whole ambit, you do an audit, and then what you do against KPIs. And we have 5 SDGs, and I'll go down later, that BV conforms to or buys into or adopts, right? So there we have it. We then do this entire audit on this entire realm of all what I've said to you. We have 9 audit packages. We then get a score. And based on the maturity level against the KPI, that score will split out. So maybe for biodiversity, environment biodiversity, we're sitting, just for example, we're sitting at 82. The 82 does not mean, hey, I got an A, I'm okay, right? It means what other action plans can I put in place to ensure my score then gets higher? And that's where the inclusion of everyone in the organization comes in. That's where that sense of community for everybody comes in. That's where the immersion comes in, because everybody buys into it and everybody has to actually have a say in what, because it cascades all the way down to the very last employee in the organization. And you have to look at your commercial partners and joint ventures, because sometimes people ask the question, why? The guy is going to be doing a JV with me, he's coming in with me, why do I need to look at? Because you are, that realm or that facet becomes an extension of who you are as an organization, right? So it's the same way at school, you tell your child, don't play with that kid, or bad news, okay? It's the same with organizations as well. You want to be affiliated, you want to have brand association that makes your image and your reputation good. So what does the integrated, so now we've gone through all this and you've told us to integrate and it's a nice idea, we don't need to be fragmented, but what does the integrated model ensure? And this is your selling point. This is really your elevator pitch to anybody, right? If you want to take out if you want to take out the complexity, if you want to take out that difficulty of it, okay, the exogenous factors that influence or impact the business, so all your macro factors, okay, it ensures that it looks into that. So when I say, what does the integrated model ensure? It ensures it looks into those things. Issues germane to the business present and future. So it also looks, your social impact models will then look at ensuring you've looked at macro factors, which are your exogenous factors. You will make sure you would look at risks or issues that are pertinent to the business, both for the present, and it gets you to a point where you become almost visionary. You look into the future, you start looking at what potential risks or opportunities are out there for the future. You don't just look at the here and now, okay? And more importantly, it will address the integrated sustainability model to business risks and opportunities. So once again, as I said to you, this is your sales pitch if you want to go back and talk for integration, okay? And most importantly, investor board executive ambitions to the macro environments and concomitant risks and opportunities. So what I mean there is you might have very ambitious, your board might have, a lot of boards these days, they have ambitious plans, am I right? Very ambitious plans, okay? And by the time it cascades to you, you're thinking, wow, you know, has anyone looked at what goes into this list of ambitions, okay? So what this integrated social impact model will then take care of, it would look at the board's ambitions. Oh, the little fellow's gone, but it's fine. So it looks at the board's ambitions, but more importantly, it takes cognizance of saying, let's look at traditionally what a board wants to achieve or the execs want to achieve. Let's look then at that profit, but more importantly, we're looking at all the macro, or as I said, the outside factors that can be associated to risks or opportunities for the business. And that's what's important. And if you want me to unpack that, we can do that in Q&A, right? So sustainability as a service. Okay, so CSR is a commitment. So I'm just going to give you a little bit, just show you what Bureau Veritas has done. So we haven't as well in the past had integrated strategies. And in the past 2 years, we've looked at why is it so important to have, we're a company that sells testing, inspections, and certifications. We do performance verification. As I said, you have to be the good student before you walk around saying, I'm an advocate for change, right? So before you become an advocate for change, you too have to be that change, okay? So we then Bureau Veritas then looked into how do we ensure we have sustainability models into building it into the corporate strategy and ultimately getting a fluid social impact model. Okay, we have something called the BV Green Line, and I don't know how many of you have heard it. But what I said to you before, I said you look at, when you're doing this integrated, you look at your business to be economically advantaged, you look to be socially responsible, right? And then you look at the cycles of nature, like your climate change, your biodiversity, and everything needs to be equal, or plus, and equal to, okay? And the equal to is ultimately your positive outcomes of being good business practices or sustainable business, and there too. So the a green line is very much looks at a host of services we offer. So this is our external positioning. So that's where it comes in. You'll hear all the marketing people talk about positioning. Oh, this is how we need to position this product. Okay. Yes, very nice. This is how you need to position the product. Okay. But as an organization, your positioning in your corporate strategy should have your external positioning, which takes care of whatever product or service you have to offer, and then builds it into, what am I doing internally? What are the employees bought into? What have we immersed ourselves into? Okay. And this is busy, but when you get time and when it's shared with you, you can read it. So as you see, that's what we call the green line, right? And that's why integration is important, because that line is fluid. That line is continuous. That line is never ending. And never ending for sustainability is a good thing, not a bad thing. Okay? So if you look at it, we look at the resources and production, consumption and traceability. So the consumption and traceability, as I said, you've got very discerning customers. They want to know, where did your raw materials come from? I mean, look at this cotton issue right now. Where has it come from? Okay? Where has it come from? Where has it gone into? And am I wearing a fancy Louis Vuitton that may have originally come from something that is not where it should come from? So big brands, textile and clothing industry, they're facing this issue. And that's why there's actually a really nice paper for the textile and clothing industry looking at integrating sustainability into your corporate strategy. So if you look at this, we look at new mobility, and new mobility is about green transportation, right? So as I said, in South Africa, we don't have electric cars, chargers, but when you say green, you could then look at what are the manual kind of initiatives we can put in. Can we carpool? We don't have a good public transport system, but can we work with government, for example, to look at an integrated transport system that is efficient and is reliable and people can, and is safe, right? So these are the things we can work on. And then of course, your most important thing is your social ethics and governance. And make sure, if you're currently, your ESG is not audited, do something or put something in place to ensure your ESG becomes audited, because you want to have a quantitative figure to what am I doing, and proper action plans to what I need to put in place to ensure my ESG works. And it's not just an empty little acronym or a buzzword or a nice to have on a sustainability. Okay, so if you look at, as I was saying, you do external positioning. So you look at your brand and you say, okay, for BV, we've sold our services are the green line. Our brand mission is very much shaping a world of trust. So you'll see everything we do, we say shaping a world of trust, because really we're sitting in that space where we are involved in compliance and conformity and assurance, right? So shaping a world of trust, and our internal CSR, which is our internal positioning, is shaping a better world. So you take the two, and as I said, it becomes integrated. But you'll find that the brand mission and the CSR mission sits within the corporate strategy. And this is basically, as I said to you, the SDGs that BV has chosen to be part of. Sorry, it's not. So really, at the end of it, is you looking at, why do I need to integrate? I've given you the rationale. How do you go about integrating? We went through it briefly, and please feel free to send me questions. My email can be shared with you. We can have a nice discourse about, I mean, 20 minutes is not enough, but if you'd like to engage, very happy. And it's not a sales pitch. I mean, we can have a broad conversation about integrating sustainability into your corporate strategy. Okay. So shaping a better world, and really for BV currently, it's the overarching theme of commitments, the integrated way of taking the corporate and bringing in sustainable programs. So we now have a proper social impact model that talks to being a going concern, but then talks to having an organization that seeks to engage in sustainable initiatives on a daily basis. So let's get integration right. Okay. So if you get integrated sustainability right, your people, your process, your planet will ultimately equal to your profit. There's no two ways about it. So let's work together to create sustainable future, right? To create legacies for tomorrow. Let's work together collectively to make this world we live in a better place and get sustainability, get integrated sustainability right. Thank you.
Very much, Sal.
I don't know if you have questions.
So we have quite a few questions that have come in.
Do I
I've sort
stand
of-
or do I?
would you like to have a seat?
I know, I'm good.
Are you good to
Yeah,
stand?
yeah,
All right,
good.
perfect. So we have
This is
quite a
my
few.
exercise period, yeah.
We have quite a few questions that have come in on social media and on here as well, which I've just collated.
Okay.
So thank you very much for all those who have sent your questions. I know, of course, with COVID, it's a bit difficult for a lot of people to be here in person. So thank you very much for joining us virtually as well. So maybe to kickstart the conversation, would anyone in the room like to give their comments, ask a question to Sal, or kickstart our conversation? Since you are right here in front of me, I can pick on you a little bit easier.
And tick here if you want more. See, I didn't have tick here if you didn't enjoy it. I'm not going to put myself out there.
All right, so let me kickstart a question. We have a few related to this. So I'm just going to sort of put them together. So I think two parts, Sal. There's a few questions on if we're looking one at the policy side and one at the consumer side. So from the perspective, and I think this is particularly within a South African context, what is the policy perspective and how is it supported within that South African context? And I think people have a sort of compared it to sort of BE,
Yes.
tick boxes.
Yeah.
What's, you know, what is that policy support within that South African context? And also what is the, you know, we talk about cotton, we talk about even in the textiles, vegan, the vegan movements towards leather, all these type of questions. In South Africa, what is the consumer buy-in within this context? Is it, you know, you mentioned quite a few times that if you have the sustainability or this integrated approach, it's going to increase your profits.
Yes. Yes.
At the end of the day.
Absolutely.
Is that something we're seeing in South Africa? Obviously, if we talk about climate and sustainability generally in the world, and there's quite a bit of political gridlock, we could say, within the European environment.
Yes.
But people have noticed we're sort of behind within South Africa in general on this.
Yes.
Where we're sitting from that policy and the consumer side within that South African context.
Okay, cool. Thank you. Thank you so much for that. And thank you for the question. So in response to that, South Africa, and I know we you know, very often it's easier to be not derogatory, but it's to be negative in terms of what government possibly has out there. South Africa is one of the few countries, and if you look at our constitution, it's testimony to that. We have one of the best, if not the best, constitution in the world. So when it comes to policies and it comes to frameworks and it comes to white papers, we are there, but it's there, right? It then becomes this sitting as policy, where does the execution lie? And that is why I said it doesn't sit with government alone. If you're looking at, and if the question was policy framework in terms of government or legislation, and we went through that, you should look at legislation as an external factor that needs to be built in. So you shouldn't shy away from it saying, oh my gosh, we have triple B, double E now, it's going to take me away. This is all part of sustainability. If you look at it, let's look at the broader issue of the right things to do. Okay, so when we're looking at the policy frameworks, we have really good papers, and I could look and make that available to you. But where I think we fall short, and where we have, and it's not just government, but we as a nation as well, we also need to take a bit of blame. And I said, the doorstep of blame, right? So there are a lot of good policies out there. It's in the execution and in the translation from policy into execution, implementation, into seeing and that is why I said, as corporates and as individuals in those corporates, we have a responsibility very much to look at what elements as an organization, because if you look and take your integrated sustainability right, the most mature business leaders, right, have got integrated sustainability right. It's a buzzword, but some people actually have that title as mature business leaders. They've got it right. So we need to migrate in that space. And when as a business, we are showing that we are making inroads in that, government, if you're looking at those policies sitting there, you will suddenly see from policy in written papers to implementation, execution, monitoring. So I don't know if I've adequately answered your question. If I've not, then I'm sorry for that. But That's really how I see it.
Yeah, and just a reminder of that, if there's any further questions or clarifications on anything for the audience who is online, please shoot them through, and we can also deal with them here.
Shoot them through.
We have another question leading on for that, and I think you mentioned it in the beginning and now as well, is that corporates, we have this responsibility and we can be that driving force. And then you also mentioned that stakeholder engagement. So how do we as corporates generally be that driving force, but to create or co-create these integrated strategies with government, which is something I think you mentioned. So how can we be that driving force, not from just an advocacy point of view, saying, look what we're doing, this is insufficient, etc., but how do we actually get that seat at the table and say, how can we co-create or have this integrated approach with the key stakeholders?
Okay, so a lot of companies, and I see it's very good because it's the new wave of thinking, right? Have stakeholder engagement or stakeholder managers in their organizations. And I see it's very prevalent, and especially oil and petroleum companies, they do have a stakeholder management department, okay? Sometimes it falls as somebody's sidebar job. Sometimes it's like, okay, take this role on, call yourself and stakeholder manager, or sometimes you have it as a complete role, okay? But that is the first step, is to actively go out and engage with stakeholders. So you would look at people in government, you would look at NGOs, you would look at associations, you would look at other corporates. And I mean, Cess and Jean-Michel, both from BV, are very good advocates of that. They're very good in stakeholder management, and if there's a particular program that we're trying to work with, or if there's a pilot we're running, very good in going out and looking at who will engage with us, or what kind of immersion and inclusion we can get from those stakeholders. So yes, a lot of companies do have stakeholder departments. How effectively we use it, therein lies the issue. And that is why, if you do have that department, they need to be the driving force between engaging with who's out there as well as who's in the organization. So they are that common conduit between your executive, your leadership, your board, and your external stakeholders. So stakeholder management, don't use it as a buzz. Really unpack it. You know, there's a lot of nice words people use out there, but if you don't effectively implement it, that's all it's ever going to be. A nice word, right?
Thank you very much, Sal. And I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that of course, as the chamber, that is one of our main duties as a chamber, is to really facilitate that process. So I think that's my promo done for the day. My chairman will be happy with that, so I think I'm done. So I'm going to take another question. This one is from Karen Longley, who is board director of the chamber, but she's also the head of a company called Leading Language, and she's also part of the Grasha Michelle Foundation. So she works very actively with SMEs. So of course, her question is related to SMEs. So Karen would like to know, what role can SMEs play in adopting an integrated sustainability policy?
Karen or Caroline?
Karen.
Karen, thank you so much for your question, Karen. So as I said, we all have a role to play. Okay, if we want to work as a collective, and if you want to contribute to any one of those SDGs into the 2030 agenda, we have to make a conscious decision, right? Because sustainability cannot just be an ideological construct. It cannot. We cannot just have it as an ideological construct to use it to influence human behavior or human control, right? We have to really immerse ourselves in it, and especially for SMMEs or SMEs, right? You will find a lot of the guys, they face a lot of uphill battles by virtue of being a small, medium, or micro enterprise. They face a lot of uphill battles, everything from funding to getting their products out there to marketing. So I think my advice to Karen would be, for the SMEs, is to look at engagement with big multinationals and big corporates. And you know, the French chamber is, and I'm not punting the French chamber, but I'm punting the French chamber. You know?
Punt away.
But Dr. Even the team, they're really good about, especially SMEs, when they need kind of advice, or they need guidelines or something in the right direction. Use the other French corporations or multinationals sitting within the chamber, where we can assist. And I mean, I would freely give Bureau Veritas free time, free advice, no cost to SMEs, even in terms of assurance, because that is a CSR program we would like to rollout as well in terms of ensuring SMEs have ISO. They are compliant. They do comply to standards, right? If they do have products, it goes through a verification of conformity. So I think that way it needs to happen. The SMEs need to look at the big businesses, and it's not always easy. So sometimes a person like Karen can be that perfect conduit for saying, I can facilitate that. The chamber can be the perfect instrument, the perfect vehicle to facilitate that. And I'm sure a lot of the what have we got, about 300 French companies in South Africa would only be too happy to be part of that, right? From a non-monetary. So I pledge you, non-monetary, okay? I know you want to be sustainable.
Cool, thank you. So I have some more questions coming in, but I'd like to put the spotlight back on our audience. Is any questions or comments from those here today?
And that was a tweet coming from one of the birds on social media. So yeah, if you can read that too, I'm happy.
I don't know if you saw the DW advert, but they had the Hadiga in there, the common feature of all Zoom calls, I think.
Yes,
in South Africa. So any questions or comments, or does anyone disagree?
Yeah,
with corporate sustainability. It's always good to have a controversial discussion. Always makes it interesting.
And then I'm going to make you come in front of the camera and disagree with me.
All right, fantastic. Okay, so I'm just
going to... Dr. Eve has a question.
Chairman.
The chairman has a question.
Actually, somebody who disagrees with No, I'm not disagreeing. I have just small issue on the word sustainability.
Yes.
Is the real sustainability and is the fake sustainability.
Yes.
And it's a lot of fake sustainability because it's fashionable.
Yes.
I don't want to answer on that.
Yeah, but and you raise them, yes.
It's really important for people not to follow what is the normal.
Yeah.
The normal idea. Most of them are wrong. And I can guarantee you, a lot of people will discover it in 5 years, 10 years from now.
Yeah.
They made a huge mistake on their choice.
Yeah.
I mean, what I concept, try to understand yourself and not to be completely naive to follow rules.
Yes.
Okay? Because if you follow the general idea, I can guarantee you, when Madoff in the US was doing things, everybody was telling, all the banks were saying, this guy is fantastic, we have to invest. Okay, it was a disaster.
Absolutely.
The Iran project was a disaster, and everything. And everybody are following. And you are the problem. I am not, can guarantee you. But a lot of people are followers. I follow nothing. I follow what I think. Okay? But I am not a follower. Be cautious to be a follower on sustainability.
Yes.
Because you can be completely manipulated.
Yeah.
I mean, I fully agree on sustainability. You know that. No problem with that. But I ask people just to be a little bit cautious and not to follow because everybody is telling the same thing.
Yeah.
Okay? It's not the truth.
Yeah. And that's absolutely right. So
sorry,
for the guys who have not heard.
Yeah, okay. I was going to say the same.
No, you go. You go.
No, I think I'll give you the opportunity to try and decipher the chairman's question.
So I think, guys at home, what Dr. Eve was saying is that sustainability should not be a word that we use loosely. It should not be, a fashionable item. Okay, so it shouldn't be where I'm following this because it's the norm, and then I've got this whole host of this mass amount of people following this, and it's precisely what you say, and to my point, and that is why I said when you are looking at sustainability programs, make sure it talks to something that you can collectively and fundamentally change, not something for social recognition that you're going to put your press release in the paper tomorrow to say I painted this or I did this or I followed a pyramid scheme, right, or one of those things, right? So you need to be, and I think that's good, and the point you raised talks very much to that very discerning customer base that we have out there. People are becoming, and younger people, they're just so into the true identity of sustainability, and they want to sort of take out that mask of sustainability and say, let's unpack this. If you're saying we have a sustainable program, what does it fundamentally do for me first as a person? Forget you as an organization. What does it do for me as the guy in the street walking past with poor air quality or, bad sanitation, no gender equality? So those kind of things, you should have healthy discourse. And maybe a lot of corporates are not at that place where they should be in terms of encouraging healthy discourse, okay? And it very much starts at the top, but if you can engage in that diplomatic, healthy discourse, if you're finding something is not right, you have a right. It's like safety, right? You have the right to say no if you feel your life's in danger, if you're given an instruction. So it's the same way with sustainability programs. It follows the same paradigm. If you feel something is done for social recognition, question it. Because if you cannot go home, close your eyes, and feel heartfelt, warm, and fuzzy about a program, an initiative, or a plan that you've put in place, then you got to question it. And that's where the fragmentation comes in, because it's not unadulterated. It's not pure, right? So thank you for that question.
Thank you. We have another question, and I think it relates to you mentioning that you're a comms person.
Comms, marketing, and what else?
So I think you mentioned quite a bit, well, I'm linking the question to this, but you mentioned quite a bit about, sort of crisis communication, these type of things. How do, and I mean, I think a lot of the thing at the moment is companies owning and being very transparent and having these conversations. So I think this question is related to when you're in transition of becoming this, formulating the sustainability, integrated sustainability policies, and making that shift. How do you approach this, particularly in an age of media pundits and a lot of criticism and a lot of openness at the moment? How do you sort of, from a communication point of view, navigate that kind of thing, particularly in that transition period?
Do it internally first. That is my biggest advice. Do it internally first. The first thing we do as corporates is, especially multinationals, we have the budget, whatever. Let's go out there and get a few people to put it together. That is what Dr. Eve was talking about, the fakeness of it. Okay, do it internally. You need to believe in it. It needs to be a philosophy you buy into it. It needs to be your own gospel truth. Because if you don't believe in it and you're selling something that a comms agency has put together for you, I say, I'm going to be a naysayer, right? I'm going to be the devil's advocate. So do it internally, and then you can bring in, there's nothing wrong with comms agencies. We use them all the time, but you've got to have it internally where you believe in it. So that program needs to be put in internally, needs to be unpacked internally. All the creases, the wrinkles, all of that. Put your own anti-age on it, right? And once you have it ironed out, then you say, right, it can be packaged, how it can go to market, or how it can be communicated throughout in terms of employee engagement. But those engagement sessions need to be with employees and need to be internal first. And especially as leadership teams, you've got to get that buy-in of each other, of every employee in the organization. Do your do your roadshows if you need to. That's the best way to get that information. And don't be scared for people to whinge and moan, right? When you're doing a roadshow and the guy pipes his hand up and is like, what are you talking about, sustainability? I saw the other day, blah, blah, blah. Listen to what the person is saying, because where there's smoke, there's fire, right? So that is my best advice. Do it internally, get it done right, iron out your creases, and then look to, okay, how do we disseminate this? How do we communicate? But when you have buy-in, let me tell you, even the guy who's sitting as an intermittent worker, if he or she understands that, when the message comes out, they're going to go, you know what? I was a part of that. Oh, that idea I actually gave them, right? So people take ownership. So to get a buy-in, you got to have custodianship of every single person within the organization buying into it. It's like a family meeting at home, right? You're having a disagreement. You don't call you shouldn't call outside people, okay? You need to sort it out internally. So it's the same thing. Okay.
All right, fantastic. So I'm just checking the time. We've got an hour for those who have joined us online. I'm going to close with one sort of question just to help round us off, unless there's anyone from the audience. Yay! We have one brave taker in the audience. I think that's the common thing of safety.
Name, punch your company, everything for 30 seconds.
My name is Ian Gali.
Ian Gali. Am I Ian Gali? Lovely name.
And I've got a question or a topic about impact assessment.
Yes. Environmental impact assessment. Okay.
And also what you are talking about on sharing your to engage stakeholders.
Yeah.
How can you raise up actions and concrete plan and strategy?
Mm-hmm.
And one of the solutions is impact assessment, which means to talk concretely.
Yes.
Not just a vision, not just a value.
Absolutely.
What is the topic around the impact nowadays regarding those goals?
Okay. So So I think very much, corporate strategy, when you have corporate strategy coming, it, very much comes from top down, right? Let's be honest. The guys sitting at the board or exec or senior management, they're not going to engage every single individual in terms of putting the corporate strategy together. But when it starts there, that corporate strategy needs to have the input of, for example, the guys doing sustainability, risk management, quality assurance, impact assessments in terms of reputation, in terms of where the organization is. So you will have individuals that have those roles or those functions in an organization, right? So for me, I think we need to be in an era of where people are provocative. Okay, even in your job, be provocative, not where you get fired, but be provocative in the term of healthy discourse. Okay, so if you are sitting, for example, in the area of looking at risk or a social impact in your organization, in the environment, in terms of what the organization does, be provocative or be preemptive or take that initiative to have that conversation. Right? Because at some point, some of us report to some of us who would sit on leadership, or maybe we have an organization. I mean, like we at BV, there's no such thing. Everybody just will knock at your door and I got an idea, and that's okay as well, right? Because with that culture change comes where people can talk about things freely and have that conversation, but you need to be provocative. So to engage, if your corporate strategy is not sitting with tangible, sustainable programs, you've got to be provocative, and that's the only advice I can give, because unless you have the mandate where you can bring a consultant from the outside, because sometimes as well it's wrong, but we listen to a consultant from the outside rather than listening to our own staff internally where the wealth of knowledge sits, right? So if you can use that as the conduit to get the message across, because you are going to make a fundamental difference for your organization, for other people, the users of your product or service, and just for individuals at large, be provocative. And that is my advice I can give. All right, because you'll find your strategy, the implementation, the integration is not as complex as you think it is. But exactly what you're saying, it starts with having that conversation, right? And that's what needs to happen. So even like if you have employee engagements, don't feel shy. So just say, I'd like to know about this, even if you use your child, other people's children, use whomever you can, they've had this topic at school, this was broached, I'd like to know as an organization, if I want to go back and answer to my kid, like, what do I say my organization is doing? Okay, so there's many ways you can frame your discourse to be healthy and to be provocative without being disrespectful or derogatory, right? But have that conversation. I think it's important, because that's how change happens. That's how evolution happens, right? That's how we get to a better place, is by having that dialogue. And that's what's missing sometimes, right? And I know this is the worst of time because 3/4 of us are working from home, but nothing precludes us from sending a mail or a little Teams message or whatever medium or platform you use to have that conversation, right? Okay. Thank you. It's a very good question.
And I think that's a perfect question to end on. So,
thank you.
So, unless you have any more closing comments on your side,
no,
I think we can close. All right. So
thank you so much. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for your time. Thank you.
The camera. So I just like to extend a big thank you to Bureau Veritas as always, as a platinum member. Thank you very much for your support, but for engaging with us today. And for providing your expertise and your time. It's very much appreciated. So thank you very much to Sal Govender, who's the Vice President for Southern Africa at Bureau Veritas. And of course, we have Jean-Michel here. Thank you to the BB team. I think, as you've said, to all those at home and those here as well, we will definitely distribute the PowerPoint, and Sal has volunteered to be on hand if you have any further questions after. So please, if you do have it, this is what the chamber platform is about. It's about engaging and helping you facilitate these kind of discourses and narrative conversations as well. So please do reach out. We're here to help, and so every one of our members. So thank you very much to those of you at home. I hope you have a great day, and we will see you soon. And for those here today, we're going to enjoy a nice coffee and croissant now and carry on the conversation if you want to. So thank you very, very much, everyone.